Hey again, everybody. I am DJ Riley, one of the hosts from Boys on the Bench, and I am back with my top 5 NBA prize picks for these Saturday games. Also, make sure you're sticking around to the end of this video because I will be dropping 2 of the positive EV bets from Daily Grind Fantasy, who has been printing these green slip tickets on a consistent basis using their optimizer tool and their correlation tool. Really, all they do is take most of the research out for you and allowing you to just simply put all of their bets into a slip, and it has just been printing one after another. Also, make sure you're checking the link in the description because I have our X profile link down there where I have already dropped some of my top NCAA men's plays for today for PrizePicks. Also, make sure you're subscribing to this channel, hitting that notification bell, getting notified anytime that we drop a new video because they are coming out daily. Anyways, let's go ahead and jump into these picks. The first player on this list is the Joker going over 26.5 points versus this Philadelphia 76ers team. They do have a one-game history this year on January 16th, and in that game, we saw Joker go only for 25 points. His line for that game was at 25.5, so he did just hook this performance with the under. But I really like him in this performance, and so does Daily Grind Fantasy. They are currently giving him a 52.4% chance of hitting with an average juice of minus 124. Again, we really prefer these odds to be somewhere around that 54%, but 52.4 is not too bad at all. Now, if we're looking across the board, we do see that 3 books have already bumped his line up to 27.5, hinting at the over in this game. Now, looking at the most recent performances of his last 5 and last 10 games, he has hit the over in 4 of his last 5 and 7 out of his last 10. Now, over the stretch of his last 5 games, we have started to see some of his usage increase in terms of shooting because now he is averaging nearly 20 field goal attempts per game. In those prior 10 games, previous from his prior 5, he only averaged 12 field goal attempts per game. We've started to hear that now teams are trying to limit his assist, and they've stopped double teaming him as much and now have started to really play him in isolation. So really kind of letting him work, and it's started to pay off for him because, again, like we've said, in those 5 games, he has hit 4 out of his last 5. Looking at how Philadelphia is versus the center position, they also allow the 8th most points to that position. So really love the Joker here. But let's go ahead and move on to the next game, and that's Kawhi Leonard going under 36.5 points plus rebounds plus assists versus this Boston Celtics team. They do not have any head-to-head history this season, and all time Kawhi Leonard has hit the over versus this in every single game versus the Celtics team. Now, also looking at what Daily Grind Fantasy is giving us in terms of positive EV, it is not great. They currently have this at 48.75% chance of hitting with an average line of minus 109. So this is not a great bet in terms of positive EV. But where I like Kawhi Leonard in this matchup is if we look at his last 5 and last 10, he has hit the under in 3 out of his last 5 and 7 out of his last 10. Also, if you look at his last 30 matchups, he has also hit the under in 18 out of his last 30. Now, also in the month of January, only 2 small forwards have touched 30 points plus rebounds plus assists versus the Celtics team. That was Dylan Brooks with 31 and Kyle Anderson with 30. So they've done an excellent job of shutting the forward position down. And with Kawhi Leonard's recent history, really everything other than that positive EV is hinting towards the under today. Because even if we look at how Boston's done versus small forwards, they've allowed the 4th least points plus rebounds plus assists to that position. So anyways, really like that under there for him. But let's look at the next bet that we have for today. And that's Giannis Antetokounmpo going under 33.5 points versus this New Orleans Pelicans team. They do not have a head-to-head matchup this season. And if we look at Giannis and kind of how he's done all time versus this Pelicans team, he's 0-2 at hitting the under. He's always hit the over versus this Pelicans team. Daily Grind Fantasy is currently giving him a 50.8% chance of hitting with an average juice of minus 120. Now, again, that doesn't sound too great, but where I really like him in his under is if we look at his recent performances, he's hit the under in 4 out of his last 5 and 7 out of his last 10. Also, if we go all the way back, looking at his last 30 games, he has hit the under in 22 out of those 30 games. The Pelicans have been extremely dominant versus power forwards by only allowing a high of 26 points in the month of January to that position. The player that hit that was Kevin Durant, who still hit the under for that day, considering that his line was at 27.5. New Orleans Pelicans versus the power forward position allow the second least amount of points. So yes, Giannis has been very good versus the Pelicans in years prior, but they do not have a head-to-head matchup. And Giannis has not been performing very well here recently, hitting again under in 22 out of his last 30 matchups at a 33.5-point line. Anyways, looking at the next game or the next player that we have here, it's the same game, and that's his teammate, Damian Lillard, going under 37.5 points plus assists versus this Pelicans team. Again, no head-to-head history this season. The one time that Damian Lillard did play this Pelicans team in his career, he did hit the over in 37.5 points plus assists. Daily Grind Fantasy, again, not too great, giving us a 50.5% chance of hitting with an average juice of minus 119. We also see a book that is offering this at 36.5. So that is a little bit of it is good value in a sense, because it's, hinting again at the under that these other books may be flexed up a little bit too high. Now, looking at his recent performances, again, last 5 and last 10, he has hit the under in 4 out of his last 5 and 9 out of his last 10. But also going back to his last 30, he has also hit the under in 23 out of his last 30 games. And he has not hit this line in his last 5 home games. I feel like his line is awfully bumped up because the Pelicans have struggled so much to stop opposing point guards by allowing the 7th most points plus assists to that position. However, where I really like him is that he has struggled to shoot the ball recently. I picked him to go over on his points a couple days ago, and he fell nearly 10 to 12 points short of meeting that line. So he's slowly becoming on my do not bet list, especially if he hits this today. Not in my favor, then he will be slowly, again, working his way on my do not bet list. But I do like him. If we look at his last 7 games, he has shot less than 40% in 5 out of those 7 games, meaning that he has hit the under in 6 out of those 7 games. So yes, New Orleans Pelicans have struggled to stop the point guard position, but Lillard has struggled to shoot the ball in week plus now. So again, if I had to put my eggs in one basket, I really like the Pelicans to stay competitive in this game, shutting down both Giannis and Lillard today with their points. Anyways, let's move on to the next and final pick of today's games, and that's Taurean Prince going over 11.5 points plus rebounds versus this Golden State Warriors team. They do not have any history this season, and in the 2 games that he has played versus Golden State, he has went under in both of those games all time. Looking at what Daily Grind Fantasy is giving us, it's 53.2% chance of hitting with an average juice of minus 132. We can also see that there is one book also favoring this by bumping it up to 12.5, giving us that 1-point edge. Looking at his recent performances of his last 5 and last 10, he has hit this over in 3 out of his last 5 and 8 out of his last 10. Also, looking at his last 30, he has hit the over in 20 of those last 30 games, 67%, which is a very good number. Now, the Warriors have been dominant versus small forwards all the season, giving up the 3rd least amount of points plus rebounds to that position, but they have struggled greatly this last month. In the month of January, the Warriors have allowed 6 out of the last 9 small forwards to hit their over in points plus rebounds. So yes, they're very dominant all season, but this last month they've struggled, whereas we're seeing Taurean Prince in this last month be very dominant. Again, hitting the over in 8 out of his last 10 and 20 out of his last 30. So anyways, guys, these are my top 5 picks for these Saturday games, and looking to make it another positive day from yesterday after we went 3 and 5 on those picks. Also, if you've made it to this part of the video, these are the top 2 positive EV plays from Daily Grind Fantasy. So if you are still working on creating some prize pick slips today, make sure that these 2 picks find their way into some of those slips, because again, Daily Grind Fantasy has been printing these out like crazy. Also, before you log off, make sure to hit that subscribe and notification bell, because these videos are coming out daily, and I want you to keep winning like we are. Anyways, best of luck, and I will see you next time.